All right, let's see how this goes. Hi, John here, you there. And for the next 3 days, we are going to be doing the show 5 minutes early to start. And it is going to be from here in Macon, Georgia, because it is that time where we get to do the basketball championships. And it is wall to wall basketball on the GPBs. And literally, it is going to be 9 to 11, and at 11 o'clock it'll be a kind of a hard out, and it will be me then racing over to the Macon Coliseum, the Macon Centerplex, as things kick off at 1 o'clock today, tomorrow, and Friday. And then it kicks off at 11 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. But there is no morning show, so we won't have to do something at like 7:30. So this is the deal for the next couple of days. 9 o'clock start instead of 9:05, and then it will be 11 o'clock, and then we're off and running on the day. There's still a lot to talk about. We've got to get into CONCACAF Champions Cup from last night, because there's some interesting results there. One of them was in Picks of the Week, and one of them was a loss for me. Then you've got to get into Champions League from yesterday. We've got to get into what is going on today. We'll get into your AM news. There's some news involving Sheffield Wednesday that we've got to get into. There's some news, obviously, with what happened yesterday in the Champions League, just the stunning results on a couple of them. We'll get into that coming up in a bit. And then also guest rundown for today. This one's going to be fun. 9:30, we tracked down Matt Brown from Extra Points. And Matt and the Extra Points crew have, over the last year, they have done some investigations, and we'll see about correlations between the idea of amount of money spent in men's soccer and women's soccer on the collegiate level and levels of success. And we're going to see about proportionality. We'll find out if there's, if there is a direct correlation. We'll find out how this kind of started with them, and all of the activities there. So we're going to spend some time talking college soccer and financing, or finances and budgets. That'll be at 9:30 with Matt. 10 o'clock, we'll see if we can catch up with the busiest man in the Northeast, Dylan Butler, and we'll start our previews of what's going on with Major League Soccer. Then at 10:30, I don't know if you saw this yesterday, but MLS Next Pro is adding another franchise, and it is in Cleveland. And so now we get to catch up with our friends at Forest City, Cleveland. Now, Noah Tumert, who is part of the foundation element, the executive director of the foundation that is attached to what is Forest City, Cleveland. We'll catch up with him coming up at 10:30, and we'll find out what it's like to have finally birthed something, and what it's like to have day one. And we'll get into Cleveland and MLS Next Pro and why there, and all of the things. And so we'll get into Forest City, Cleveland at 10:30, and then we'll get you ready for your day, what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it, all your gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Will be out by 11 o'clock, and then we're off and running. So that is the rundown for today. Opening kickoff, as always, Morning Alex, brought to us by our friends. And we're going to talk about Newcastle and Barcelona. We're going to talk about that. Brought to us by our friends at Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com. And way to start your day is with us, as we let you kind of know what's going on with your day. And they get to help you with the start of your day at Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com. Beans from Brazil and Guatemala. And it has the taste that you're really looking for, a rich taste. They've got it at Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com. We can't thank them enough for being partners with us here at SDH, and get to see them paired with us all over the place. And so very, very cool that they are partners with us here at SDH. And so with opening kickoff, I figure we probably should be getting into Champions League and what happened yesterday involving Champions League. And so, yeah, this is where I take all of my devices that I have, and I have to try and figure out, okay, what are we talking about? So yesterday it was, yeah, I will allow that one. That's very good. Nice zinger there, Alex. Has Lamine Yamal been able to crawl out of Lewis Hall's pocket yet? It was, let's just say it was interesting. It was a hot crowd yesterday. It was the main match that was on the audio side of things for Champions League. And for the longest time, you were thinking it was going to be a result that was going to benefit Newcastle, and it was going to have to, remind Barca that they got work to do. And then all of a sudden, tail end of the match. You end up with the yeah, Michael, yeah, we're going to get into that. The tail end of the match, you end up with a penalty call. Sorry, Alex. And it ends up as a 1-1 draw after 90 minutes. And so honors even, legit. It's honors even as you're heading to leg number 2. And so I tip my hat. I tip my hat to you, Newcastleians. I guess that's probably the easiest way to talk about it. I tip my hat to you for what you were able to do for 89 plus minutes. And you ended up with a great game plan. And now the idea is to just carry that over into next week. Actually, if you can sit there and you can finish the deal. I mean, you got it. It's in your hands. You got to get a goal next. You got to get a goal next time around. But yeah, I was in the car and literally, 90 plus 6. And I literally was of a mind of, man, you had to call that then, didn't you? And it was, yeah, it was one of those where you're kind of sitting there that one. But I mean, yeah, it gives folks something to think about going forward for leg number 2. And, like I said, I tip my hat to you at Newcastle for everything that you pulled off yesterday. And 90 plus 6. I mean, come on now. You're sitting there and you're looking at that it's right there, and you end up with 90 plus 6. So that was one of them yesterday. And the other one that we'll get into the juice boxes and the endings and things like that. But you end up with 2 of the games of the 4 that were tight. Newcastle and Barcelona. By the way, Newcastle and Barcelona, if you had the draw, it was a plus 300. Nicely done on the juice boxes if you had that. I know that Alex was probably locked in at a plus 165. You were a slight underdog, but you ended up getting the draw to plus 300. Galatasaray with the absolute shock of the close matches. You end up with a 1-0 win for Galatasaray at home at a plus 350. Liverpool was favored at a minus 139. So it was a big win for a big underdog yesterday. They were the leadoff game. And so that gets us to the other 2. And I apologize to Spurs fans. It has gone completely off the rails. I don't know. It is just out where the buses don't run, and I don't know. I'm out of answers. I'm out of answers. You end up with a 5-2 result, and yeah, Tom, we're getting there. A 5-2 result by the time you were done for Atletico de Madrid, and nope. I mean, legitimately, it was stunning how it went down. It literally was. It was stunning how it happened. 17 minutes of Antonin Kinski. 17 minutes. And howler upon howler, and you're starting to have the same discussions about Antonin Kinski that you had about Loris Karius. And it was, short of what we saw with Loris Karius and that particular howler, that was just one. And the timing of it is what we get into with Loris Karius. But 17 minutes of just wow. And I cannot remember. I legitimately cannot remember. And if you guys, and if any of you can remember anything close to this, then I will tip your hat to your memories, because I can't think of any. I can't remember the last time that a keeper was subbed out in a situation like this, where you have all of this happen off the rails so early. And then it goes boom, and you're swapping out a keeper. I mean, literally, you're putting Vicario in, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. Spurs, by the way, have confirmed as of an hour and a half ago that Igor Tudor is going to take the press conference to preview the match with Liverpool tomorrow at 1:30 local time. So that would be 9:30. So wait, 13 minus 4, 9. So while we're in the show on Friday, we will be kind of keeping an eye on Igor Tudor and that press conference. So they're going to preview Liverpool Friday at 9:30, 1:30 local time. Tudor is set to take that press conference. So that we do know, and that came out of an hour and a half ago. And apparently this morning, CEO Vinay Venkatesham has arrived at the training ground. Igor Tudor was supposedly there at the training ground already this morning, since he's staying at Spurs Lodge since his appointment last month. Players and staff are believed to have an off day, according to Sky. Gary Cotterill, quote, things seem very quiet, but I think there's things going on inside. At about 8:50, so a little before 5 o'clock this morning, our time. Vinay Venkatesham, who would announce any decision Igor Tudor is to be relieved of duties, arrived at the training ground. Very shiny car. Tudor arrived early this morning in the lodge after returning from Spain. Players got into their cars, went home. Head coach and a couple of the staff stayed. And according to Cotterill, he will have already been in the training ground. There's probably something afoot, which many pundits, fans, ex-players, and potentially current players would be in favor of with the body language we saw in Madrid last night. So as of a couple of hours ago, CEO Vinay Venkatesham is there. Igor Tudor is there because he's staying at the lodge. So he and his staff are there. Venkatesham is in the building, the CEO. Players should be having an off day, as it is thought. But now the conversation is, and I'm not even going to talk about pundits, because you have pundits overseas who have ties to the club, and they're sitting there saying, man, management was terrible and all this kind of stuff. If you just look at it from the face value, you started Antonin Kinski to give Vicario a bit of a break, and it did not work. Did not work. So it was awful. It was awful, and it was over. And so you now are 3 behind heading into the reverse fixture next week, and you've also got a relegation fight to keep an eye on. And so I'm going to check the relegation fight really quickly just to see where we are here. And we mentioned, obviously, Sunday you've got Spurs at Liverpool. Right now, juice boxes for that one, just to give you an idea. Juice boxes for Spurs and Liverpool. Spurs are the late game on Sunday. They are a plus 750 at Anfield right now. Massive underdog. No surprise, but just the number. And when you sit there and you associate, say, Spurs with so-and-so, having that large of a gap space is unbelievable. Liverpool a minus 278, draws a plus 500, and Spurs are plus 750. We'll keep an eye on that. But as of this morning, Igor Tudor is still employed. Staff is still employed. Players get the day off. CEO in the building. And so there's that one. And then the other one of the 4. And you end up with a margin that was stunning to begin with because of the hot start that happened once again. And it was just, you are running. Atalanta, I believe Atalanta, I think, had a lead. And it was 1-1, and then Bayern Munich just put 5 down, and it's like, yeah, we're done. We're out the door. We're good. Minus 143. Bayern Munich was a favorite on the road, but they put 6 on Atalanta. 6. One more than 5. So if you thought Atletico de Madrid putting 5 on Spurs was making a statement, Bayern Munich makes a statement, winning 6-1 at Atalanta. So that's where those 4 went yesterday. Galatasaray with the shock win in some circles. So Galatasaray wins 1-0 in the early game. Newcastle 90 plus 6. Sorry, Alex. At a 1-1 draw with Barcelona. Atletico de Madrid 5-2 with Spurs, and it wasn't that close. Bayern Munich 6-1 at Atalanta. and that was yesterday. So today, your 145, you're early. Bayer Leverkusen and Arsenal. Arsenal favored, minus 189. Bayer Leverkusen a plus 500. You're 3 at 4 o'clock. Obviously, a lot of folks are keeping an eye on Manchester City, Real Madrid. Manchester City at Real Madrid is even money. That, to me, is really surprising. Real Madrid at plus 270 draws a little north of that. PSG and Chelsea. PSG favored at home at the Stade de France at a plus 110. Chelsea at a plus 229 draws a plus 270. And this one has shifted. As we have been looking at this matchup, Bodo Glimt and Sporting, and then obviously we'll talk about it tomorrow with our buddy Nino Torres when he comes in at 10 o'clock. Sporting and Bodo Glimt initially were dead even. They were both, literally everybody who's into juice boxes was just like, yes, screw it, but we'll put it at the same number and then we'll go from there. It initially was a plus 165 for both. It has now shifted. Bodo Glimt north of the Arctic Circle favored at a plus 135. And they are going up against Sporting an underdog at a plus 190. And so Bodo Glimt has gone from an even Steven favorite. So basically they were just like, yeah, we'll put a blanket over it because we don't know, to a decided favorite today at 4 o'clock. So the three matches, 4 o'clock. Bodo Glimt favored at home. PSG favored at home. Manchester City favored on the road at Real Madrid. Bayer Leverkusen at home, big underdog to Arsenal. And that's your rundown of anything and everything going on in Champions League. Will we have as much chaos today as we did yesterday? I don't know. I mean, to me, it almost seems like how do you phrase it? The March Madness, where you end up with an idea of one day is traditionally kind of crazy, and then the other day really isn't. So if that is in fact the idea that I would apply to this, I think today might be calmer than it was yesterday. So I will say I think it will be calmer, if that makes any sense. So I think today might be kind of normal as we go. Yeah, I probably should do this. All right, so let me go ahead and hit the breaking news sounder, since we're talking into the politics morning local. Since we're into the international stuff, let me go ahead and hit the breaking news sounder and blow out my ears. Okay, so according to our friends at The Guardian et al., and this is multiple press agencies, Iran is saying it cannot participate in the 2026 World Cup after the death of their leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The sports minister, Ahmad Donyamali, has said today. And he comes out with a statement, and it ends up by saying, under no circumstances can we participate in the World Cup. Donyamali's comments come after Gianni Infantino reported that Iran was welcome to play at the upcoming World Cup despite the ongoing war in the Middle East. Infantino said that they were discussing preparations for the competition, and also it was spoken about the current situation in Iran. And Infantino wrote on Instagram that Iran was welcome to compete in the tournament in the United States. Iranian officials suggested recently the country's participation was in some doubt, but Iran is scheduled to play group matches against New Zealand and Belgium at SoFi and against Egypt in Seattle. Then let's see, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that has gone on, but basically it was a one-liner that has been released by the sports minister saying that under no circumstances can they participate in the World Cup. So we'll keep an eye on that, but that is just the statement that was made basically that came out about 12 minutes ago. And so obviously we'll keep an eye on that as we go and see if that changes over time. And like I said, well, it's, we'll keep an eye on that as we go, but that's your rundown of everything in Champions League, plus, minus, forward, and a little breaking news on the world side. Once again, Matt Brown set to join us in about 10 minutes to talk about economics and college soccer, both on the men's side and the women's side, proportionality and all those kinds of things. So Matt Brown slated 9:30, Dylan Butler slated at 10 o'clock. We'll see if we can catch up with him. And then at 10:30, we find out about Forest City, Cleveland with Noah Toomer, who is the executive director of their foundation, which is a key element of the whole thing, and MLS Next Pro. So that's the rundown for today. And then after Noah, we'll get into we'll kind of drift in and out of topics in the morning news and things like that. And so morning Ricky, morning Local, morning Tom, morning Alex, and morning Michael Had. I'm trying to see if I've missed anybody. And yeah, okay, so we're caught up. I'm glad that all of you are in here early this morning. Okay, CONCACAF Champions Cup from last night. It was a late night because, and I give them credit because they are spacing it all out, and you're not just you're not locked into multiple devices and multiple matchups and trying to figure out, okay, where am I going? What am I doing? All that kind of stuff. So you had a couple of matchups last night. You've got 3 today. So we'll do the review preview here, and then we'll get you into the rest of your day. So last night, and it was kind of tight in all of the matchups, and you were kind of wondering how it was going to shake out. It ends up with Club America getting the 1 goal they needed at a plus 138. They were favored in Chester against Philadelphia Union. And so because of that, Philadelphia, and this is a topic that we'll get into with Dave Leno, batting leadoff, probably from an airport on Friday morning, play-by-play voice of the Philadelphia Union. He's going to come back for opposition research instead of just the season preview. So it's going to be more of an Oppo research segment with Dave coming up 9:05 on Friday morning. And Philadelphia, as they head to Atlanta, are going Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. How does the lineup look? We'll get into all of that and wonder about rotation and health and all these kinds of things and how it's going to be navigated by Bradley Carnell going to Atlanta on the weekend. So Club America gets a goal, 1-0 win over Philadelphia Union. And that was, obviously a big result for them because then that way they can end up going home with that 1-goal advantage, which in those environments in Liga MX, it's a fairly solid bet that it's going to be really hard to knock off a Liga MX side on the road. Velga scores in the 20th minute, and that was the difference. So Velga scores in the 20th, and you end up with a 1-0 win for Club America on the road. Cruz Azul and Monterrey was the pick of the week to start off picks of the week for those of us who are into doing that in the Discord. You end up with a brace for De La Rosa, 5 minutes apart for Monterrey. Lira scores in the 25th to make it 1-0. Then you end up with the De La Rosa brace that 1-1 and 2-1 at that point. And then that was the score at the break. And then you end up with a red card, which was a second yellow in the 80th minute. And so Monterrey was down to 10. And then Piovi scores on a penalty after a couple of substitutions in the 84th. And then Ibanez scores in the 90th minute after yet another yellow. And so at 90 plus 3, you get another substitution. But 90th minute goal to make it 3-2. Cruz Azul gets the win. And you end up with a lot of yellows in this match. So let me check the stats really quickly because it's like I look up, I see either a substitution or a yellow card or a red card. So 26 shots for Cruz Azul, most of them happening after the red card. 7 on target, 9 for Monterrey, 5 on target, and it was 8 blocks for Cruz Azul, only 2 for Monterrey. You end up with fouls, 24 fouls, but you end up with 5 yellow cards, 14 fouls on Monterrey. You end up with 3 yellows and a red, 10 fouls called on Cruz Azul, 2 yellows, no reds. But so you end up with the big win in that one for Cruz Azul going up against eventually 10-man Monterrey. And so it was a 3-2 win there in that one. And then the nightcap, and I mean nightcap because it was an 11 o'clock start at BMO, and it was 1-0 on an Alejandro Braun goal in the 44th minute. And I admit that I fell asleep. I was watching it and I nodded off. And so I wake back up, and Braun has scored, and it's 1-0, and Alawalense carries that 1-0 margin into the break. And then Denny Bouanga scores in the 56th. So you end up with a 1-1 draw. So Alawalense acquits themselves really well on the road at BMO. And so that means that LAFC has to go down to Costa Rica in the second leg to end up with a result to advance if you are looking at it from the MLS team perspective. And so 1-1 draw, LAFC and Alawalense, 3-2 Cruz Azul over Monterrey, Club America 1-0 over Philadelphia Union. And so that's your rundown for today. Tonight, Champions Cup goes to Nashville, 7:30. And once again, it's another late night, 7:30, 9:30, 11:30. 7:30, 9:30, 11:30. 7:30, Nashville and Messi and Friends in Geodas. Nashville is a plus 160 underdog, understandably so. And Messi and Friends are a plus 140 favorite. Your draw is a plus 270. Then at 9:30, it's the intriguing, and I say intrigue because of, once again, we have another team that has issues getting visas to bring players into the country. And LAG and Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is a plus 5,000. LAG favored, understandably so, at a minus 2,000. LAG right now will be facing a shorthanded Mount Pleasant team. Mount Pleasant has had issues getting visas, and as many as 10 of the players on their normal game day roster will not be in attendance. They're having to try and figure out if they can bring up academy players to help out in this process to fill out a roster and have a game day. So that's what you're getting into with Mount Pleasant and LAG. This one could get out of hand and ugly at 9:30. 11:30, San Diego and Toluca. This one really is good. The nightcap is going to be the fun one, I think, of the three. San Diego FC is favored at a plus 129, draws a plus 250. Toluca is a plus 210. And San Diego right now, they're favored at home. And they're going to have to take care of business in both legs. But Nashville SC and Inter Miami, that one's the early one. Keep an eye on that one. Messi and Friends are favored, no shock. Mount Pleasant could get ugly with LAG. And San Diego FC and Toluca, San Diego favored at a plus 129 in that one. So that's your CONCACAF rundown. And that is Opening Kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Black Pitch Coffee, blackpitchcoffee.com. And thanks to them for being great partners with us here at SDH. Okay, this is fun. And this is what happens when you are diving into information on a daily basis that you are. And you come across something in all of the information that you follow, and you're sitting there and it's like, hey, I think I'll hit that story. And you hit that story, and it ends up being a deep dive, and I've got to find out how this actually happened, how curiosity got into our friends at Extra Point and figured out how they decided that they wanted to go after college soccer. And they've done it for 2 seasons in a row. And we'll find out about proportionality and what it takes to win titles and all that kind of stuff. And for this, we go into the Central Time Zone. And it is a great opportunity for us to be able to bring folks in that we haven't had on before. So we sit there and we cut the scissors. And we bring in Matt Brown. Oh, he's wearing the Brazil jersey. Look at that. Nicely done. Welcome to the morning show. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me, John. I feel like I had to look the part here this morning. I appreciate you having me.
Well, yeah. So you're the one that looks the part, and I'm the one that's in a hotel room this time. So that's where we are. It flipped. Normal circumstances, you look at the studio space, it's scarves and everything all over the place. Sure. But I'm in a hotel room this time. Okay. So I admit, full disclosure, I subscribe to the newsletter. I get the dailies. I look at everything. You're followed on the Twitters and all of that. So full disclosure, that was the genesis of all of this going in. And I love the work that you and the 38,000 folks that are there put together on a daily basis. And I saw the stuff on college soccer, and I was intrigued about the work that you guys were doing there about determining, okay, is there any kind of proportionality to success when it comes to budgets and amount of money spent? I want to go back to the beginning of it. How did this just come across your bow? Was it just natural curiosity when it came to college soccer and financials?
Legitimately, it was. So we do at Extra Points is a major part of that coverage is covering finances, covering vendor contracts, covering the business of the college athletics industry as a whole. And every single Division I and Division II program, whether you're public or private, has to file an itemized annual budget report with the NCAA. If you're a private school, it stays with the NCAA. But if you're a public institution, with a few small exceptions, that can be obtained by the general public, by coaches, by nosy reporters like me through open records requests. And we do hundreds of these every year. So we've been building a database of these financial reports. We have over 200 across Division I. And we've been trying to isolate this spending, not just by sport, but by some of the line items. And tomorrow, I think we're going to run one on college baseball. But we do have a fair number of college soccer coaches and sport administrators who read Extra Points, and they had asked, "Hey, we know you did this last year, and it was smaller in scope. Your analytics software is a little bit more improved now. What can you tell us about how those budgets are evolving? What are people spending their money on, especially now that we have a little bit more data in the post-portal, post-NIL world?" And that's what we did with both women's soccer, and I have a tab up here on my other monitor here for men's soccer that details the operational budgets for virtually every single team in Division I that's public.
So, how many FOIA requests, is someone who probably files more FOIA requests than probably a good number of governments in the United Nations? How deep a process was this? How many FOIA requests are we talking? When it comes to cranking this stuff out, I mean, do you weigh yourself down in Google Docs? I mean, it's fascinating to me to get to the financials. You mentioned the process. Tell me about the process. I'm now completely and totally enthralled.
Sure. So, I have to admit, it would be better for me professionally if I described the open records process as some kind of like arcane art that only I and like 7 other nerds can master. It's really, and in all honesty, the process isn't super complicated once you know where to file the request for every school. And because Extra Points has been running for 6 years, we have a shared spreadsheet that has the custodian of records or the FOIA process for every institution. And so we can do some of this stuff in bulk. The more difficult thing is figuring out what to do with the data once you get it, and then figuring out how to hound a couple of these smaller institutions that maybe take a long time to get back to you. And we're still waiting on Power 4 data from Georgia Tech and Florida, even though the due date for giving us this information was 2 months ago. That's part of just how this stuff works. But once we get it, we manually convert these PDFs into CSVs to break out every single itemized income and expense. And then we can run that through some spreadsheet and formulas. We've kind of vibe coded a program or two to help us do some of the calculations, and then we'll go double check them to compare that information. And it took a long time the first time we've done it, but every year and every sport, it gets a little bit easier. And now I think part of the fun thing is we have the raw data. Now we just need to get a little bit better at telling useful stories with that information. And the useful stories, we hope, whether you're a coach in college soccer, a fan of college soccer, or potentially a commissioner, administrator, or somebody that works in the business world that's trying to promote and grow this sport, as the U.S. Soccer Federation is trying to do right now, and many private investment groups.
So you do the men's version, and that was back in July of last year. And it was interesting to look at operating budgets, and it's the same. But amongst the big players, it's the ACC, it's the B1G. It's those guys that you anticipate. Clemson was the one that, well, obviously you're number one, and you've blown the bell curve on the men's side back in July from fiscal 24. You're dropping almost $4 million on it, $1 million more than number 2. What did you learn about doing the men's version back in July that could help you do the women's version that came out just a little bit ago?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually have the fiscal year 25 men's data. I haven't published it yet, but I have it pulled up on my other monitor, and it looks a little bit different from 24. I don't mind telling you guys that the top spending team again in fiscal year 25 was still Clemson, operating budget of about $3.6 million.
Okay.
But the gap there isn't nearly as large as it was before, and the number 2 team might be a little surprising to casuals, probably not surprising to your audience, but it was Marshall. that reported spending a little over 3 million. And then you have mostly a concentration of Big Ten programs throughout the rest of the top 10. You have Kentucky in that group. You have Virginia Tech in that group. And then you kind of move down. What's interesting to me about collegiate soccer, which is different than baseball or softball or many other sports, is that the financial gap between the proverbial big boys, your Clemsons, your ACC, and your Big Ten institutions, is not that much larger than a very motivated non-power conference institution, or somebody like an Oregon State, a James Madison, an Akron, a New Hampshire, somebody that teams that are trying to not just make the postseason, but win some games. The gap there might be $1.5 million. $1.5 million in college football pays for a position coach, right? That's your muscle milk budget. And I think that creates a pathway where if you're a South Florida and you decide we really want to go all in and we want to raise an extra $600,000 to go to this budget, that can go meaningfully a very long way compared to what it might do for basketball or football.
So now the numbers geek in me is like, you could send that 25 stuff to me at any time. Whichever.
I got you. Yeah.
But I find it interesting that, you go away, you go with the go fives, the group of five and all that kind of stuff. Is there a proportionality? Is it direct proportion from amount of money spent to level of success and getting closer to winning championships? Or are we still in that loss leader category at points where you're getting close, but it's not quite there? Where is there a proportionality when it comes to men's soccer?
Looking at the graphs, the best data we have right now, there is some correlation between a total size of your operating budget and your RPI. There is a little bit less of a correlation between total budget and straight win-loss percentage, and I think some of that has to do with the quality of schedule and how regional play here is set up. But it's not a completely one-to-one linear expression. And in fact, if I'm looking at our most recent data correctly, there's almost as strong a correlation between spending on scholarships as there is for total expenses. And I think that's an important thing to think about, particularly for men's soccer, where prior to the House settlement, it would not be uncommon for teams to be competing in Division I men's soccer and not even fully fund the total amount of scholarships that they're permitted, right? You might run out 3.5 and use this primarily as a mechanism to earn international tuition money than you are trying to actually win, conference titles or championships. So if you don't have to spend a ton of money on fancy facilities or the most powerful advanced stat solutions or anything, if you just fund scholarships, you're going to be ahead of the curve compared to some Big Ten institutions. And I think that is something that we're beginning to see more in other Olympic sports. And I expect to see that in the future for the New Hampshires and Vermonts of the world that think, why there's no reason why we can't compete with Ohio State and Michigan here.
Matt Brown, our friend from Extra Points, hanging out with us, discussing financials, college soccer, and FOIA, and all those things in the alphabet soup with all of their great findings that have come out over the last year plus when it comes to men's and women's soccer on the collegiate side of things. Was there a number or a school on the men's side that leapt out at you that was a more of a surprise than the others when it came to, wow, I didn't anticipate that they would be spending this much, or wow, I didn't anticipate that they weren't spending this much and more successful? Was there one that shocked you?
I am a little surprised looking at the last data at both Penn State and Rutgers, who through the last season that we have the financial data for, were not terribly good programs, right? Under 500, RPI not in the top 75. And it's not like these are programs that have, I think, really strong traditions of fan support. Yeah. Of commercial support in any way. They're both spending more than $2 million a year on their total operations budget. And some of that, I think, is a reflection of the state of New Jersey's accounting rules, which makes some of their salaries just look a little bit bigger than they actually are. But you have to figure that if you gave a program like Vermont, or if you gave a program like, I don't know, even in NC State, some of those resources, that they would be able to deploy those a little bit better, right? And it's Rutgers. It's easy to pick on in particular because you can pick 9 other sports, I think, where what they're spending is in no way proportionate to their either commercial or academic success. I think the bottom end of the Big Ten for both men's and women's soccer surprises me for spending relative to actual results. And I think it's maybe wouldn't be surprising to follow the sport deeply, but how much success you can have with a budget of only $1.5 million. You don't need a lot of money to be a nationally competitive collegiate men's soccer team.
And I think it's real easy these days to just kind of ish on Rutgers in general, considering that they're $90 billion in debt right now with their athletic program.
Yeah. I mean, money's not real, but money is especially not real at the state university. They have a lot of structural financial problems there, no doubt about it.
Yes. All right. So let's go to the other side and the newer findings before you release the men's version 2.0. Women's side, and for me, you go to the top, and that was the number one stunner for me. This literally was, stone cold at WrestleMania X8 to Scott Hall kind of stuff. I mean, I mean, you see that team that is there at the top, and I'm going, excuse me, what? I was stunned at the number one that you saw when it came to budget there on the women's side. Please divulge for those who haven't had the chance.
Sure. You and me both. And so if you look at the most recent financial data, just for pure operational spending, the largest reported budget in the country last year belonged to Utah State. Now, Utah State's a fine program, right? They were the top 20 team. They got a little unlucky in their first tournament match, but they were a very good mid-major women's soccer team. And they have fan support, and the school would like to be competitive there. But you don't expect them to spend more money than Washington or UCLA or Tennessee, especially because I've been to Logan, Utah. Logan, Utah is a fine place. I would not describe Logan as an especially high cost of living area compared to maybe some of the West Coast markets that have college soccer. And this is why I think it's important to go deeper into the weeds beyond just the top line total expenses number.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've learned from just writing about MFRS reports for a long time is that they're not always as completely standard or as uniform as you might think that they would be. The biggest reason why USU's number exploded so much last year is that they did some major stadium renovations and put all of that money, the $3.5 million that they used to update the scoreboards and change some of the seatings, they put it into the operational budget for that 1 year. You go back to fiscal year 24, Utah State's budget's around $1.5 million. Something that lines up a little bit more with the Pac-12, like old, new Pac-12 or Mountain West kind of program. Beyond Utah State, the top 10 are going to be pretty familiar, I think, to many of your listeners. They're primarily SEC institutions. Penn State's really high up there. Texas Tech is really high up there. And you kind of have to, the rest of the Big Ten is a little bit further down, but your Texas A&M, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, they're all north of $3 million and have been for the last couple of years.
The Utah State number, when I was looking at it, I was thinking, and I wasn't thinking about upgrades or anything. I was going in cold, and I was thinking because of how geographically separate they are, because last time I checked, you don't have PJs going into the Logan, Utah airport to take teams and send them to their matchups wherever they are in the sport. You don't see that big 747 come in to take the football program off on a Saturday. I was thinking that it was specifically having to do with just operational expenses of getting out of Logan and trying to play in conference.
Yeah, I thought about that. The school that would be the perfect example of that sort of thing would probably be Penn State, where the campus runway is not campus, the State College regional airport is famous for having a really short runway. And if you have a big old plane, you can't fly there. And many Olympic sport teams, when they go to Penn State, fly to Harrisburg and then have to bus an hour and a half. It's one of the most geographically isolated major schools I've been to. I have to think it's like them, Washington State, and St. Bonaventure are the three places where I've been that are like real middle of nowhere sort of places. But that doesn't seem to be where the cost is. I mean, Logan's not that far from a major airport. You can actually break this down by who spent the most on travel. Penn State's in there, but the number one would be Washington, and I think that makes sense just because Seattle's far from everything, and you are going to have to charge. There's not many bus trips you could take if you're a UW Husky for virtually any sport.
Yeah. When it comes to this whole process, and you've mentioned how it has kind of worked its way and it's got its own rhythm now when it comes to data gathering and assimilation and paperwork and all these kinds of things. How it seems like most of the schools are cooperative. You mentioned there are a couple of outliers, at least early on in our conversation.
Yeah.
Are they as receptive as they appear to be, or is it kind of begrudging, or when it comes to wanting to assemble this information so we all can be more informed? What is their approach when it comes to letting you know about these kinds of things? You sit there and you knock on the door, and and it's like maybe Penny and Sheldon and Big Bang Theory, and they go, yeah, okay, I'll open the door and find you an answer. How receptive are they when it comes to all of this information that you're trying to get?
It's a fun question. It completely runs the gamut because I've been doing this for a long time. And for those that are unaware, when you file an open records request, the state institution, whether that's a university or a civic government or a lawmaker or anybody else, are legally compelled to respond to that request and answer it. And there are some institutions that understand the mission of what I'm trying to do, and they understand that these requests are not adversarial in nature, or at least most of them aren't. And it's a very painless process. And there are some that I think, and I'm not unsympathetic to this, like this freaking guy again. I might file 11 of these a year asking for coach contracts or vendor deals. I get how that could be annoying. And many of these institutions outside of like the P4 might have one clerk, 1.5 paralegals that are doing this. And so they're overworked. And sometimes that can be maybe not adversarial, but they're not exactly jumping for joy to give me the things just because they've got 40 other requests to do. And then you have a couple where it is pulling teeth. And I'll tell you, the places where it's usually the hardest, there's a handful of states in this country. They're all in the Southeast. It's Tennessee, South Carolina, Alabama, Arkansas, that require you to be a resident of that state if you want to file a request.
Really?
I live in Chicago.
Yeah.
So what I have to do if I want to get the financial information for South Carolina or for Tennessee State or USC Upstate or something is I have a burner. I will pay somebody in those states to file on my behalf. And some of those states are like, sure, we get this. We do this for national reporters all the time. And some people are like, excuse me, sir, you can't have a straw buyer for an open records request. Like I'm trying to buy a gun. And that becomes a bigger pain in the butt. But eventually we get through it all.
Is there one school or a handful of schools in your analysis of both the men's and the women's game that was a complete and total head scratcher to you with either the amount of money that they were spending on things like salaries and infrastructure and not necessarily on the program itself? Was there one where you're sitting there going, man, there's dollars here that should be going in other directions, and you're bringing in high profile this and high profile that? Were there ones where you're sitting there and you're looking at the bottom line going, man, what are you spending this on?
I think I'd flip this a little bit. One of the things that I have really come to believe from doing this for a while, not just from looking at spreadsheets, but as somebody who writes about business and who believes in the momentum and trajectory of soccer, particularly on the women's side. I think it might surprise people about how many Division I schools do not ticket for women's soccer. They do not charge anything. They are not trying to make this any kind of revenue generating event. It's just you get in free. If you want to go watch the Tar Heels at UNC, you absolutely have to go buy a ticket, and they can, they'll report, hey, we generated, six figures in ticket sales this year. Oklahoma State will do that. Just about everybody in the SEC will do that. But there are some decent teams, not just among mid-majors, although that's definitely true, but even a couple of power programs that don't charge at all. And I understand why they don't do that, because I think, all right, our attendance is only in the couple of hundreds, and it might cost us more money to have a Ticketmaster person and like the infrastructure to do that. I don't think it is practical to expect many women's soccer programs to be completely financially self-sustaining in the next couple of years. But I do believe if institutions treat men's and women's soccer, but I think especially women's soccer, as a live event that can grow and can have alcohol sales and multimedia rights sponsorships and halftime sponsors and everything that we expect for college basketball and college football, I think if people put a little bit of that energy behind it, those revenue numbers can grow. It's probably a little bit harder on the men's side when you have USL and you have the rest of the American soccer pyramid and other competition for kind of developmental soccer leagues. But on the women's side, it's different, and more of those people are going to play professionally in the United States. I think it is time to begin to make stronger investments in the commercial infrastructure to support that product in college.
So, of course, you drop the hammer at the end of this thing and open up like 19 different doors for me as we go. You realize, of course, that means you're going to have to come back.
If you twist my arm, I'll find a way to do that. You bet.
Absolutely drop the hammer with the women's soccer stuff. I love that. Okay, hit the blatant promo for us and let everybody know who is not a part of the Extra Points universe. Let them know how they can do it and what they can expect.
You bet. I write a newsletter 4 days a week called Extra Points, which covers business, policy, and off-the-field stories in the college athletics industry. So sometimes that's looking at money and its relationship to winning in men's and women's soccer. Sometimes that's college baseball. Sometimes that's breaking stories about college basketball scheduling, about conference realignment, about video game licensing, and NIL legislation, and what's happening in Capitol Hill. All the kind of stories that shape who's good on and off the field and how universities engage with college athletics. And you can find that at extrapointsmb.com. The financial data that we're discussing here, that's generally behind our subscription paywall, but there's still 2 free stories a week and plenty of things to engage with for no money at all.
And you are, in fact, the man for doing everything that you are doing with all of this stuff. It's great to see you. Don't be a stranger. You now know where the garage door opener is. If you ever want to vent your spleen, you know where the key is under the mat. Great to see you, Matt. Go wrap your breakfast, get your second cup of coffee. We'll see you soon, my friend.
Okay. Thanks, John. Appreciate you.
There we go. That's Matt Brown from Extra Point. That's cool. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I subscribe. And for us to be able to catch up with Matt and find out what's going on there, that was really good. And so of course, when he says at the end about women's soccer, about where it surprises him that they are, that more often than not, because of where women's soccer is right now, that surprises him that you're not having a lot of programs, and it's also on the men's side too in some situations, but it's an opportunity of revenue that can be generated. And like you said, he opened that door right at the end, and I'm like, but that means that he's going to have to come back and talk about it, because we're going to need the empirical breakdown of everything and go, okay, so how many of these programs are successful and how many of them are charging a couple of bucks to walk in the door and all this kind of stuff. But to Matt's point, if you have a couple of hundred folks, you charge $8 a ticket, that's still, $2,000, $2,500 that you could be using to keep the lights on, could be getting, getting more muscle milk, could be, making sure that your laundry's okay. It's one less thing that you'd have to worry about. So, no, it was, he's going to have to come back and we'll break that down next time. That was very, very cool to be able to catch up with Matt and find out what's going on there when it comes to their investigations and all of their work that they are doing on the soccer side of things. But yes, like I said, full disclosure, I do the newsletter, and they do fantastic work up there. And because of the newsletter and seeing the women's side, where he said, women's soccer spending versus performance. And so what I'm going to do is I will, for the sake of everybody here, this might be your required reading for the day. If you like I said, if you're just kind of sitting around and you're hanging out, maybe during lunch or something, here is their most recent work at Extra Points MB on the women's side of things, competing for a national title in women's soccer. And they do the bar graph of total expenses, RPI rank. But when you're looking at this, and the strong relationship correlation, it was a plus 0.7, where Utah State was spending more money than Texas A&M was, $4.6 million on their soccer program. But when he mentioned that it had to do with infrastructure and scoreboards and things like that, I'm like, okay, cool. Stadium renovations, I get it. I can't wait to see what happens in 26 and where they would fit from there. If you take Utah State out of the mix for women's soccer, then it is SEC, 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 B1G, Big 12, B1G, B1G, SEC, 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 and the rest of them are short of Florida State University. Of the 3, 6, 9, 12 top 15 schools, of the top 15 schools, one is Big 12, 18, and that is Texas Tech. No surprise, they're throwing money at everything. They were sixth fiscal year 25 total operating expenses at $3.25 million. Utah State was number one at 4.6. That was the mind blower, and I'm glad that Matt got to explain that. Texas A&M was number 2 at $4.5 million. UT, meaning Knoxville, at 4.2. Texas, and then there's your gap. Literally, there is like a 25% gap, or let's see, what's 8 over 42, so just under 20%, so like an 18% gap from Tennessee to Texas Austin, 4.2 to 3.4. Then Penn State was number 5. Texas Tech and the University of Washington were literally within $200 of each other over a budget of 3.2 plus million. Then you go to UCLA, Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida State University, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. So literally of the top 15 schools that spent money on women's soccer fiscal year 25, one was in the ACC. All of the others outside of Utah State and Florida State University were either Texas Tech in the Big 12 were no surprise SEC or Big 10. SEC, B1G, and then you had one representation from Utah State, you had Texas Tech, and you had Florida State University. That's that. I mean, women's soccer, literally. You didn't see that from Clemson, which was kind of a stunner to me. But you end up with that as your top 15 spenders. Your top 15 spenders right there. And that to me was what it was kind of shocking in that regard, that only one ACC school, knowing that when we have conversations with KCD, we know what her pedigree is. We know that pedigree of hers. So this is why we like to kind of have these kinds of discussions, to kind of break everything down in this way. And I'm glad that we were able to catch up with Matt and grab him by the coattails here for a little bit to break everything down. That's women's soccer. When they started it with men's soccer, literally the fiscal year 24 operating budget, Clemson number 1, Indiana, Wisconsin, Washington, Michigan, Maryland, Rutgers at 2.28 million. Marshall was the one that was the shocker to me. Marshall, and we know how the state of West Virginia is when it comes to their soccer programs. West Virginia, Marshall, they're the ones that are really, spending, then investing the effort into it. Then you have Virginia and Penn State, 3, 6, 9. That's your top 10. So Marshall, the surprise on the men's side from fiscal year 24, and they make deep runs. Clemson, no real surprise, but just the gulf from Clemson to Indiana was on a 25% gap. Clemson fiscal year 24 was $3.8 million on the men's side. Indiana University was next at 2.6. So the gulf is there, and then you look at proportionality. So that was why we wanted to bring in Matt and break everything down. But that was kind of cool. That was definitely a cool thing to get into. And Matt, with traditionally their work when it comes to anything and everything about the college game and level of investment and all those kinds of things. Very, very cool that we were able to catch up with him and grab him by the coattails for a couple of minutes. I guess hour number 1, that was first half hour I did tease opening kickoff from Black Pitch Coffee. So very, very cool that we were able to do that. Coming up at 10:30, we're going to find out about Cleveland Pro Soccer and find out what it's going to be like for them to be an MLS Next Pro in 2027. So, of course, what happens is I put my notebook out of reach. Noah Tumert. We're going to catch up with him, the executive director of their foundation. And that's a big component for them when it comes to why they're coming online. And so we're going to catch up with Noah in about a half an hour, and we're going to kind of get the rundown of everything from Cleveland's perspective about MLS Next Pro and what they're looking at next year. And there's a lot of other things that are out there. They got stadium renderings and drawings that are out because they're looking to have their own facilities. And we'll get into all of that with Noah coming up in a bit. Rundown for the rest of the week. Tomorrow, Jess Sharman's going to join us. She's going to bat leadoff. And it's a home game for her because she's got Atlanta and Philly. We'll get her thoughts so far on the season, find out what's on her mind when it comes to this particular matchup and the drive that she has coming from home to be at Mercedes-Benz. I think it's Jess and Lori Lindsay are going to be calling that one on Apple TV this weekend. And then the Power Hour with Nino and Nico, that is going to be from 10 and 10:30. Dave Leno is going to join us on Friday, hopefully our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring. And it is going to be Jesus Perez-Navarro, I think, is going to be joining us from Apple TV on Friday. All right. So speaking of Major League Soccer, it's that time where we kind of look at the week here in the middle of the bell curve, and we kind of sit there and we look at where things are. We go to our friend Dylan Butler, busiest man in the Northeast at MLSsoccer.com. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, you're the one that's running around doing all the collegiate stuff and lacrosse and how many different sports are you juggling right now?
Just got done with the basketball playoffs. We had the 98th edition of the CHSAA championship game where Archbishop Stepanak did for what has never happened in those 98 years. And consider this is a league that you had Lou Alcindor in. Whoa. You had Kenny Anderson in. You had Lamar Odom and Speedy Claxton and a host of others in. They're the first to win 4 in a row.
Wow.
It's a team, by the way, too. Real quick, that I don't know. They have 3 McDonald's All-Americans, and this is just a traditional high school. They have a Division I starting 5 and a guy who's like a top 100 player on the bench. They also have 2 7-footers in their starting lineup. Oh, actually, you know what? You being in Atlanta, so Theo Ratliff, his twin boys are on this team. Darius and Adonis, and they're both going to USC next year. So truly a tremendous team. So did that Sunday, and now lacrossing.
Wow. But yeah, you're dropping a Theo Ratliff reference. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Man. That's good stuff. Okay. The week that was in Major League Soccer, since you're like the peak of our bell curve here, when you come in on Wednesdays, and you get to kind of let me know what's going on here. Yeah,
although I will say it was a rare non-MLS weekend for me because I had a whole bunch of like basketball championships, Nassau County, and like I said, the CHSAA. But I am caught up though. So
okay, just checking. From 30,000 feet, you look back at match week 3, and when you take a peek at that, some things I would think we sit there and it's like we're reinforced with what we thought. Some folks are still kind of giving us questions after what's going on. And I think we'll just go ahead and start at the top with what happened at the 110x78. I think that's what Peter Vermees referred to it as. When he measured it himself. I
actually covered that match, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
NYC put 5 on Orlando City, and Maxime Crépeau, he handled the ball outside the 14. Notice I didn't say 18 for punchline purposes, and it was all downhill from there. And I honestly thought that
I thought like if you wanted to take a shot at the field, like you could have said, and I don't know what side it was on, but you could have said like short right field.
Yeah. Oh, I mean that's a default. I mean that's. Just look at where they are. I think, so I think that Maxime Crépeau handled the ball at second base, and much like Willie Randolph, went after it with his hands, which you're not supposed to do in soccer. And it was all downhill from there. And I'm still wondering what the future for Oscar Pareja is. And I don't know if that game spoke more about Orlando City, if it spoke more about NYC, or where we are with those 2 teams going into match week number 4.
Yeah, no, I think fair shouts. I think it's hard to I think there's two variables, right? There's the field, and then there's the early red. And so now you get to wondering, like, how true of an assessment can you draw from a match like that, right? Do you just throw it out and be like, is what it is? But I think for Orlando, you've got to include the first two match days as well. And that's why I think your like initial point is a valid one. You know, I think there's pressure already there for Oscar Pareja. So, and how true of a result is that for NYC, right? Well, I don't know. Are they suddenly a scoring juggernaut and dropping all? It's it's hard to say. When you spend so much of a match like that in tight confines that you have there, that you're so comfortable playing in, up a man. So
yeah, well, and
it's a weird one for sure. But I think of the two, you look at it and be like, it's hard to say on it's going to be what, March 14th that you have a must-win game, but Orlando home for Montreal, yeah, you need points.
Yeah, and considering that one, you don't know which Montreal you're going to get. We kind of have an idea as to which Montreal we know, but then of course they end up, punching the baby Bulls in the face to lead off on Sunday. So going into that matchup with Orlando and Montreal now, I don't know which Montreal I'm going to get, and I don't know which Orlando I'm going to get. So I'm guessing it's going to be like a goalless draw, or it's going to be like 4-4, completely stupid.
Well, with Montreal, I mean, at least you would see again. I have to couch everything, right? Like, you would suspect you would get a team that's going in there with some confidence now, coming off of that win at Sports Illustrated Stadium. So. But yes, you're correct. And also, last week it's what was it? Columbus, Chicago. You're expecting that 4-4, and you didn't get that.
No, it went to the goalless draw. So Chicago and Columbus, you're sitting there thinking, okay, it's going to be off the rails, but no, it doesn't happen that way. Messi and friends go to DC, and it took them a little. Technically, yes. and so it's 70-something thousand at M&T, and so the Crab Cakes and Shane Falco, they were all there watching and everything. And DC is turning into one of those pesky teams. I didn't necessarily think that this was going to be the way for them, but I don't know if that's strictly what we get from you add Barabo and you add Sean Johnson, and you're working on the spine, and you're turning into a troublemaker, even though the results aren't getting there for you. And it happened again, as you were the Baltimore Bays, I guess, going up against Messi and friends, only losing 2-1.
Yeah, they I think like when you're trying to build something up, I mean, that's a great place to start, right? Like, let's construct this spine. Let's be difficult to play against, and then like we go to the next, we level up from there, and now we work on other things. But I think that's a good starting point for DC. So I think of those teams that had struggled and were kind of doing a reconstruction, like I think that's a positive start. Like, if you're a DC fan, I think you're encouraged, I think, by what you've seen early on.
So then you go to Philly and San Jose. San Jose makes the roadie, and they go to Subaru, and they go to Chester, and they get the 1-0 win. And so I don't know, like we were talking about with NYC and Orlando, I don't know if this speaks more to what San Jose is, what Philadelphia isn't, or where either of these teams are, because Philadelphia is having to juggle multiple competitions. And it's a point that I've been making all week, where that's the beginning of 3 in a week for Philly, because it was San Jose on Saturday, it was Cuba Medica last night, and then they're having to fly down to Atlanta on Friday to take on Atlanta United on Saturday. So you're kind of front loading your ideas, but I don't know if a 1-0 win/loss speaks more to San Jose or Philly in this one.
I would aim to say San Jose. Well, maybe both. I mean, like with what Philly lost,
Mm-hmm.
and and it's funny because we kind of said something similar last year, like oh well, look at what Philly lost, and we're not sure, and new head coach, and then they win the Shield. So now, like you're kind of hesitant to make any definitive statements this early in the season.
Pay no attention to the man behind the microphone. Exactly.
But again, right? Slow start, multiple competitions. Yeah, not great. Not a great look right now for Philly. But for San Jose, I think it's a big positive. I don't know the exact record right now, but like the West is just bossing the East.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not easy to go completely across the country and get 3 points. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's I mean, and they're off to their best start ever, San Jose. So
yeah. And to your point, it's like the East teams, as they're going west this season, they're getting thumped.
Yeah.
The West teams, as they're going east, are not. And so, I think that I want to take this empirical evidence and kind of hang on to it and kind of work forward with it as we go. But early evidence has the Western Conference teams really doing numbers as they come east, which is really wild.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, you look at, we mentioned the Baby Bulls in Montreal, so let me go here and discuss them quickly. So everybody was freaking out. And I mean, everybody was freaking out. It's like, what are you doing starting a 17-year-old and 16-year-olds and all this kind of stuff? And a lot of us were sitting there going, well, considering that he coached them last year and they won a title in MLS Next Pro, he knows what they're doing and knows what they can do. And so no shock that he would have them there. But apparently the world got set on fire with this notion of, I don't know, you're not looking at a driver's license, and obviously, and it's like, oh, okay, so, hey, you can actually play and you can start and you can do this. And it was just, it didn't surprise me, but it seemed to shock a heck of a lot of other folks that the Baby Bulls were doing what they were doing in their first 2 matches.
Yeah, but 100%, I agree. And I think too, what you get more often than not with young teams is you get ups and downs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think everyone was like, what? Montreal went in there and they did what? So, yeah, at Red, but again, it's just sort of it's in any sport, any situation, if you've got teenagers playing professional sport, the consistency part is very, very difficult to get. So, not necessarily surprised by that. But now I'm intrigued by how they respond.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, this is their first loss. It's a tough loss. It's a home loss. And I want to see too, this is the beginning of a new head coach.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what he does. Like, does he stay with the same 11? Does he change it up? Does he sit the kids? It'll be interesting.
Yeah, just to sit there and it's like, okay, here, take a breath, take a look, watch the match for a little bit, and then we can adjust it from there. The starting 11 last time out for Red Bulls: Horvath in net, Dos Santos, Volodare, Che, and it was Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy at the back, Forsberg, Mehmeti, and Hall. And obviously everybody's looking at Julian Hall. All things being equal, early and irrational, hey, rookie of the year kind of thing. And then you end up with Ruvalcaba, Choupo-Moting, and Cal up top. And so you only had, I think this is the problem. He only had one of the youngins starting in this matchup. That was the problem. He only had Hall starting as part of the Baby Bulls. And so going up against that roster, the bench: Parker, McCarthy, Valencia, Rossborough, who we know from Red Bulls, to Mosqueda, Mina, Mitchell, Rojas, and Berggren. So Yeah, he only started once, so we've solved his issues. He's got to start the kids. You have to play the kids every single time out in this one. When you look at the other matchups that were there on the weekend, and Western Conference, we could kind of get into that a little bit. Charlotte at home, they beat Austin. We mentioned the no-goal thriller with Columbus and Chicago. San Jose and Philly. San Diego keeps rolling. They go on the road, beat Sporting Kansas City. The Borges signing apparently is officially official, according to Ben Jacobs. So he's coming in. Nashville continues to roll at 3-1 over Minnesota. Yeah. Seattle over St. Louis City, who has no offense. Colorado over LAG, I think, was another big surprise, putting 4 on the Galaxy at home.
That's another red card. That's another one of those red card situations.
I mean, it's just And LAFC gets a win at home. Vancouver put 4 on Portland. Portland's got a big one coming up this weekend. Toronto and Cincinnati, before we turn the page and come forward. Toronto and Cincinnati. Toronto goes to Cincy, gets the win, and they now have – yeah, and so now you're bringing in Josh Sargent, who the expectations, I imagine, are nothing short of astronomical. Hey, we dropped, the GDP of some Eastern European country to bring you over here. So the expectations now are huge. Toronto got a surprise win on Cincy. Once again, does that say more about Toronto without Sargent now bringing him in and integrating him, or Cincinnati and stumbling? And should we sit there and kind of raise our eyebrows at Pat Noonan and wonder what's going on in Cincy?
You raise good questions.
Heavy sigh with the man.
Again, I'm gonna go on the positive side and
sure.
And say, good on Toronto, and maybe the signing coming across, and there's new energy there. I honestly don't know what to make of Cincinnati. Right. Again, to be fair, while no one man is a soccer team outside of Messi.
Yeah.
They're Messi, if you will. He did return late in that match, but it's still Evander not being 100% Evander. So.
Yeah, and
maybe that's where you take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and Daniel Shalhoub, who was another one of those off-season transactions where you're going, wow, Daniel Shalhoub to Toronto. And Shalhoub gets the goal in the 86th, and that ends up being the difference in that one for Toronto without Josh Sargent, by the way. It was Luka Gavrin in net, Kusevich, Walker Zimmerman, Monlouis, and Richie Larea, who just fell down again, by the way. Sifu, Georgi Mihailovic, and Jonathan Osorio, Raheem Edwards, and Daniel Shalhoub on the wings, and you had Arizabal in the middle. So, I mean, but you look at that starting 11, and you're going, okay, I can kind of see what's going on here, because, if you keep Walker Zimmerman healthy, you keep him in a sufficient amount of bubble wrap during the season, then you've got a solid center back there. Midfield of Sifu, Georgi Mihailovic, and Osorio. You can see stuff there. Then, Raheem Edwards, Daniel Shalhoub, and then you bring in Josh Sargent. So I can see some pieces here, and I can see it kind of forming, at least from a starting 11 perspective for Toronto going forward.
There's a soccer team there somewhere.
Oh my God, there's a soccer team. Derek Etienne Jr., Thompson and Kerr, and you still have some of the influence from the not so Reds, the Toronto FC2, when you have in Simmermancic and Stefanovic and stuff like that. But there are these almost soccer team vibes coming from Toronto these days. It's crazy, and you add Josh Sargent to this, and so wild that Toronto gets the win. So we come forward now this week, and you've got teams that have played in the midweek with the CONCACAF, CONCACAF, and all the things.
Yeah, I'll be on tonight for that.
Oh no!
No, it's not an oh no. When you look at the map, granted, the middle one you've got LAG and Mount Pleasant, but Nashville, Miami has got some spice to it. And then obviously, the San Diego and Toluca should be great. That's a kind of match you want if you have to watch it at 11:30 p.m. Eastern.
Yes, absolutely true. And
if it was LAG Mount Pleasant at 11:30, it would be a little bit difficult.
Yes, and we were discussing what was going on with Pleasant and the visa issues where it could get Defense Force ugly. And I mean, it could be out of control because they're trying to find 10 players denied visas on the way in. And you're going, this could get out of control. So if you can find a juice boxer that will play an over, then find that over and probably take it. That would be the way that I would think about it. On the weekend, Toronto and the Baby Bulls, and it's in Toronto.
I think honestly, John, there's like up and down. There's a ton of intrigue, I think, throughout. I mean, it starts with that for sure. Is it Josh Sargent's debut for Toronto? Can they keep up the mojo after that? Is how amped up is that place going to be coming off that win, and what will the Baby Bulls bring after their first defeat? So there's intrigue there. I think Atlanta and Philly as well, right? Like two desperate teams at this point of the season. So I'm interested there as well. And really right down the line, there's like, you could look at every one of them and like Columbus, Nashville, right? Nashville, what a great start. Columbus off a goalless draw, like they've scored some goals early on. Like, could that be another one of these two that can be, a bunch of goals? Charlotte and Miami, that place should be bumping, right? NYC, Colorado, again, NYC at Yankee Stadium. Colorado, right? They're coming off
so there's nothing going on, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, Colorado putting 4 on LAG last week.
Yeah. So Orlando, Montreal, another desperation derby.
Hashtag desperation derby. So all right. So that now that you've blown through them here, all right. So Toronto and the Baby Bulls, what's your gut tell you?
I think Sargent starts.
Okay.
Because certainly it wouldn't be a fitness issue. He's late in his season, right?
Yep.
So he should be fine for that. I think there's intrigue there. Like I think there'll be a few goals scored as well.
Yes. So we'll keep an eye on the juice boxes for totals when it comes to those. All right. So Atlanta United and Philly, what's your gut?
For some reason it's a draw, but
well, I mean, the juice boxes right now are within the margin of error with each other. So I mean, it's plus 154 for Atlanta, plus 160 for Philly. So
it's hard to tell. I mean, does Atlanta have a double edge with being at home and not having to worry about the fixture congestion that Philly has?
Right. Yeah, and that to me would be the larger question. So Crew in Nashville coming off of playing tonight, having to turn around and go to Columbus. Hey, at least you're the 625 matchup on Saturday. You're not like first like Toronto and the Baby Bulls. So Crew favored, they're on the minus side with Nashville coming to town.
I'm intrigued by how Nashville deals with that early in the season. Like, is that the rotated Nashville?
Yeah.
Taking on Columbus, I would suspect it would be. Like it's full board today, and the same is true with Miami. Although it feels like Messi never, and actually they really didn't rotate at all last year with all those like 73 matches or whatever they played. So
they are not, So and you've got more reinforcements this year than you did last year.
Yeah,
you've gotten with Berterame and the newer faces that are there for you, and the reinforced faces for Messi and friends. I'm intrigued with that one too. NYC in Colorado. NYC at the 110 by 78. Where is that one? Is that one in the Bronx, or is that one at
the Bronx? Yeah.
Okay, so it is in the Bronx, and Colorado comes to town, massive underdog in that one. NYC's a minus 172. Colorado's a plus 450 in that one.
I think we got goals.
I'm thinking that's what you're staring at there. So look at goals, not necessarily a total. The desperation derby, you think that's going to be a goalless draw?
I think for Pareja's sake, or Orlando better get a result out of this one.
Oh boy. I mean, I thought he might get tarmacked. I legitimately thought he might get tarmacked. All right. So Chicago and DC. Chicago big favorite at home in the Eastern Conference at a -161. DC is a +450. I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too, right? Chicago, again, they can score goals, but DC's proving that they're difficult to score goals against. So I think that one has intrigue, and even you go down a little bit, Dallas, San Diego, same kind of thing. San Diego coming off a midweek, a huge one against Toluca. What will they look like against Dallas? And Dallas with Musa just getting called up to the Croatian national team. He's staring at a shot at maybe playing in the World Cup, so a little extra juice for him.
Yes.
So that's interesting there too.
Yeah, and then Revs and Cincinnati, both on the plus side. Revs are a dog at home, no surprise. Mother Nature took care of the Houston match last week, and that one got pushed to August. And so offensively challenged Cincinnati going to the turf surface in Foxborough against the Revs. It's, Cincinnati's still favored, but not by a whole lot. They're a +137 and the Revs are a +170.
Yeah, I want to see where Evander is this week, right? That's one of those where if you're looking at that match, you're like checking out everyone's social media feed. Is he training with the first team? Is he training on the side? Like, he came on for 15 minutes last week. So, do they, no pun intended, rev him up a little bit more and off the bench for 30, or is he 60, or
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one.
Yes. All right. So you are on the clock tonight.
Yes.
I forgot to ask you about last night, because Wednesday they scored first. Bouanga scored second half, but you got a draw out of Alajuelense, and you had two other 1-goal matches in the CONCACAF. Alajuelense acquitted themselves really well on the road last night.
They did, and it was a great goal too, right, from a former loon.
He was showing his brawn.
I see what you did there. But yeah, no, they good on LAFC to get the late equalizer. Not going to be easy in Costa Rica. And I think for Philly, that's one where that's tough now for them. Because now Club America has the away goal. They're going to Mexico City.
Nope.
But you start to maybe project ahead. If even Nashville now, like with Espinoza, they're dynamic. Like Nashville / Miami versus Club America. Like that's fun.
Yes.
But yeah, no, that should be interesting as well.
So Dylan Butler, MLSsoccer.com. He's got the late games tonight for the Triple C, the CONCACAF. As always, my friend, and Varsity Media on the YouTubes for all of the high school stuff.
Yeah, I have what do we have? Saturday, a first high school lacrosse game. We already did that college game with Harvard and Marquette, where I sent you those highlights.
You did with the 12-year-old sideline reporter. Yeah, taking my job.
We've got St. Anthony's and Culver from Indiana. Two of the top. I think St. Anthony's right now 4 in the country, Culver 9. So top 10 matchup to open the season. That'll be Saturday at 12:30. So that should be a lot of fun. And I posed this question for you as my last question before we break.
Sure.
So when you valet park, I'm starting to change my thought process here.
Sure.
Do you tip as you drop your car off or as you pick it up?
Out the door.
See,
out the door.
But then to me, I disagree on this.
Okay.
Here's why. you tip to go in.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're getting your car a nice spot. They're making sure they take care of your
Okay.
car.
Okay. So you're front loading the
Like
experience.
when you're leaving, they've already did all, who cares? You're gone.
Yeah, it's like
So
Larry Flash. It's like Larry Flash Jenkins and Ferris Bueller. They've already taken it out of the garage and they're jumping over everything. I get it.
yeah, no, but you throw a little $5 before, and they're like, okay, all right, yeah, we'll get you the spot in front over here. No problem.
Okay. No,
I've changed I've always been an afterwards thing. But I went to a Ranger game. I went last night, but like I took the train. But like before that, I did have to drive in, and I parked, and like I didn't do it before, and I was like, wait a minute, like who knows where they're putting me? There's a huge crowd leaving. Like, when is my car going to come out? Like, so I think these are things that you maybe help push in your favor with a little tip at the beginning.
I see where you're going. I get that. Okay. I'm down with that. I appreciate the flip. As always, my friend, thanks for hanging out with us when you can, because I know you're the busiest guy in the Northeast. Who are you today? Sorry, you hit that too. Oh, the dad. Okay, there we go. So just be safe, get your rest, get your second cup of coffee, enjoy the crazy, and we will catch up with you next week. Buddy. Dylan Butler. It's always good to catch up with Dylan and find out what's going on in his universe. And I forgot to ask about Newcastle. Dang him. Okay, wait. I'm waving him back in. He waved back in.
Back in for this. So and it's funny because I had wanted to. It was one of those thoughts I had in my brain, and then it escaped, and then you just. So here's a quick little breakdown. I was taking the train in to the Ranger game yesterday, so I was watching it on my phone on the Long Island Railroad, right?
Oh boy, here we go.
And I'm like, so many chances off the post. Yeah, I get that was offside. We have to get this goal against Barcelona. What is going on? And then we get into Penn, and then I lose the service.
Oh.
I finally emerge. I'm walking in Penn Station, and I hit my cousin. I'm like, oh my God, we just scored. I'm still trying to pull it up. I'm going through security at the Garden. I'm trying to show my ticket like on my phone. I sit down in the Shishi Chase Lounge that I love to sit in.
Oh.
I see the goal. So now I'm watching it, and then I'm like, I lose it again for a second. I come back and I see a Barcelona player standing at the spot. I was like, are you
blanking kidding me?
Yeah. So it was a range of emotions, but
yes, it was.
I don't think they're out of it. I think they played so well. Just hope for more clinical finishing on the road. But
yes, and so there we go. See, I had to ask. I waved you back in, and now you're all sad leaving again. All right, we'll see you next week. We'll see you next week, my friend.
All right.
There goes Dylan. Yeah, Dylan was pretty mad. But Abby, good morning. Don't valet park. Pay the attendant dollars to keep the keys. So I get that completely. I do. I get that. But that's just the wild part. It is. Now he's got me rethinking the whole valet thing. Man. Okay. All right. I get it. I'm down. All right. So he has got me rethinking the whole process now. If you do it on the way in, they won't put it in a place where they're scuffing the car. No, I get it now. Okay, I'm there. All right. So he has me convinced to flip my thoughts when it comes to all of this. Okay, I'm there. I get it. All right. So that's Dylan, and that is the rundown of everything in MLS. As I said, Dylan is like our bell curve for the week. He gets us going from what happened. Got a couple days to think about it, and now we're getting ready for everything to slide in on the week. So that's Dylan is the peak of our bell curve, or our Laffer curve, or however, for those of you who do economics. So Dylan is like the top of our Laffer curve, and as we work our way in toward the rest of the week in Major League Soccer. Let's get you into what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it from our friends at Fanatiz, fntz.co/soccer down here. That link is important because with that particular link, you can become a part of the family that is attached to anything and everything in all the streaming services that you have, and you can add to those by joining Fanatiz And you get, with Fanatis, by the way, you get, as I sit here and I try to dial up Fanatis as I'm talking about it, but I don't want to watch Fanatis at the moment. As much as I would like to, I can't. You get all of the BNs. You get BN in Espanol. You get Argentina. You get Copa Libertadores, Sudamericana. You get Tigo Sports. You get CATV on occasion. You get the Polish League, the French League, the Turkish League. You get everything from AFCON. You get to all of the African qualifiers on the continent. You get to all of the tournament action that's there on the African continent. You get TAC out of Argentina. You get a lot of the other countries in South America that are attached to what's going on. And it's not just the Primeras. You get the Primera A and Primera B, and you get it's like Colombia and Argentina and Bolivia and Paraguay. You get all of those. The A's and the B's are added into the whole process there. You get Liga 1 Max Pro out of Peru, and you get to follow the Peruvian first division down there. You get TVV if you want to add Venezuelan television to the process. So you can go to Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. Helps us out, helps them out, helps you out when it comes to adding all of the services that you have and seeing everything else around the planet. All right, what to watch? BN's got the doubleheader Copa Libertadores in the round of 16, I believe, in the qualifying stages. Sporting Cristal, you can get your Luis Abram update. They're going up against Carabobo at 6. Deportivo Tolima and O'Higgins is at 8:30. CBS Sports Network has Bodo Glimt and Sporting. That's at 4 o'clock. FS2 has your triple header in the Conca Crazy. 7:30, Nashville and Messi and Friends. LAG and Mount Pleasant at 9:30. And San Diego and Toluca is at 11:30. Bien en Espanol simulcast in Copa Libertadores. If you haven't had the chance, listen to our friend Howard Hamilton and the Copa Libertadores show, sponsored by our friends at Soccer Metrics. 2DN has Champions League, and they are just crazy. So 2DN is all soccer all the time today. Bayer Leverkusen, Arsenal, PSG and Chelsea, and then the Conca Crazy, 7:30, 9:30, 11:30. So literally PSG and Chelsea would end, say 6-ish, if they go just 90 minutes. Then they're going right into Conca Crazy in the triple header. Unimas has Bayer Leverkusen, Arsenal, PSG, and Chelsea. ESPN Plus has the Business Fan Special and USL Championship. Birmingham Legion, Hartford Athletic. That one is at noon Eastern time. That is also part of Picks of the Week. Paramount Plus has 2 matches in the championship at 3:45, Middlesbrough and Charlton Athletic. Coventry City is they're chasing after the titles, taking on Preston North End at 4. And they also have all of the 4 matches that are going on today you can access in Champions League on Paramount Plus. Women's side on ESPN Deportes, you have the Copa de la Reina at 2 o'clock. It is Atletico de Madrid and Tenerife. And so that is your rundown of everything that is going on the planet when it comes to all of your action that you can watch. But we also suggest that you would go and subscribe to our friends at Fanatis at fntz.co/soccer down here. And you could just add more to it. You literally could have a boatload of stuff, and you literally could sit there and go, you know what? I think I'm going to watch this. And then you could watch exactly what you wanted to watch the entire time. And so that's what you're staring at. So subscribe to it. You can subscribe to all of that. You can get the Soccer is Just Better in Atlanta gear to help out our projects for good in 2026. You go to our friends at Grady Baby, grady-baby.com, and you get it either in the red or the black with the gold embossed lettering of Soccer is Just Better in Atlanta. And when you help us out there at Grady Baby, the proceeds to that are attached to improving and recognition for middle school soccer programs that are attached to the Atlanta public school system. So that's our way of helping out and giving back helping out and giving back what's going on there. So very, very cool stuff with our friends at Grady Baby. Also our friends at the Marshall Islands that you can get the scarf. You can get the gear, and you can get the gear from them over in England. You can get the jerseys and everything, and that gets shipped from England. If you want the scarf, where we are helping them out, then you can pick up the scarf from me. I got a new shipment. And so if you don't have a Marshall Islands scarf yet, you can get the Marshall Islands scarf from me. And so it gets shipped from this side of the Atlantic instead of everything else that gets shipped from England and from the operating offices. They've got a really big 2027 planned. And so we're going to catch up probably with Lloyd Hours and Matt Webb from the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation in a bit, probably next month or so. And we're going to find out about their 27 because it looks like there might be some home matches. Might be some home matches in the Marshall Islands. So very, very cool stuff with them coming up in just a little bit with them as well. So very, very cool stuff with that. Don't forget to re-sign up on the Chant app with everything that we have as a part of that community now that we're up and running in the season. $10 you have to sign back in for the 2026 year. Once again, that helps out our Soccer for Good campaign that we have here in 2026. So very, very cool stuff there as well when it comes to what we are able to do through your help. So very, very cool stuff there as well. All right, so let's get into gossip, rumor, and innuendo. I don't think that Igor Tudor has been sacked yet, although you have a lot of folks who are already sitting there, and it's pundits. So I mean, you can put as much into it as you wish, but you can put as much into it as you want. But the last stuff that we had early this morning was that the CEO was on the training ground. Igor Tudor was there because he's staying at the Spurs Lodge, but he is supposed to take the press conference while we are on the air on Friday, getting ready for the Sunday match with Liverpool. So very, very tenuous situation at Spurs. A lot of folks are calling for Igor Tudor's head, and who knows, but right now he is slated for the press conference that is supposed to be going on Friday, previewing the press conference or previewing the match with Liverpool. So that's kind of where we are with them as it's as Spurs is trying to figure out what in the wide world of sports they're going to do going forward. But yes, Anthony Kinski, 17 minutes that did not go well, and you end up just getting absolutely blown out of the barn. And now it is a tall order to add to tall orders. Oh, I know what I was going to do. I forgot to do it. It's look at the, in addition to Spurs, where they are with a matchup with Liverpool, where they're a decided underdog. The bottom of the table right now, this is where I was going to button hook that story, is Spurs right now. It is 4 teams separated by 3 points attached to the last relegation spot. And West Ham's win last time out got them to 28 points. They have the same record as Nottingham Forest, but they are 4 goals worse in goal difference. So it is 28 points. West Ham is minus 19 in goal difference. Then you have Nottingham Forest, who's minus 15 in goal difference. That's the only reason they're out of the relegation zone right now. Spurs are at 29 points. They have not won in 2026. Lost 5 in a row in the Premier League. 7, 8, and 14, 29 points, 1 point away from relegation. Then you have Leeds, who've lost 2 in a row. Daniel Farke was he had them safely at 31 points, but now they've lost 2 in a row. So it's Leeds at 31, Spurs at 29, Forest at 28, ahead of West Ham at 28 on goal difference. And that's what you're getting into this weekend, where we're discussing with 9 matches to go in the season, Spurs as a part of the relegation discussion with Leeds, Forest, and West Ham. Leeds goes to Crystal Palace. Spurs goes to Liverpool. And this might be it for Igor Tudor if they don't get a result there, or especially if they get blown out. And then Fulham, and they go to City Ground to take on Nottingham Forest this weekend. So we'll get into juice boxes like on Friday, but that's the matchup right there that you're staring at. Those 4 teams separated by 3 points heading into the weekend when it comes to the Premier League. Now, gossip, rumor, and innuendo, what to watch, and we already got into what to watch, but the gossip, rumor, and the innuendo. The GK Union has come out in favor of Anthony Kinski, especially after pulling him for 17 minutes. You have some keepers saying that Igor Tudor killed his career, meaning Kinski's career. So you're keeping an eye out on that. The USMNT has picked Irvine, California as their World Cup training base. I think there are 8 teams. I think 40 of the 48 have determined where they're going to be. I've got the list at home. I don't have it here in front of me. So 8 clubs, I think, are still trying to figure out where they're going to be when it comes to the workouts and everything that are attached there for the World Cup coming up later on. We're about 90 days away. Crazy. Bernardo Silva could be joining Lionel Messi and friends. Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United are all scouting Freiburg midfielder Johan Manzabi. The rumors that are going on. So yes, Messi and friends have entered the race for Bernardo Silva, according to Gazzetta dello Sport. They are Juve, Benfica, and others looking to sign the 31-year-old on a free, with his contract set to expire in the summer. Negotiations regarding a salary with Silva's reps will begin with a figure close to his City deal between 7 and 8 million euro a season. Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal are looking at Johan Manzabi, according to Team Talk. 3 Premier League clubs all said to have sent scouts to watch the Swiss international, who's also being looked at by PSG and Bayern Munich. Contracted at the club till 2030, it's believed that the Bundesliga side would demand an offer of around £43 million before agreeing to part ways with it. Barcelona, Manchester United, Tottenham Hotspur weighing up a move for Roma defender Evan Ndika, according to Nicola Schira. All 3 clubs believed to be monitoring the situation of the 26-year-old, said that it's an offer of around 50 million euro. That would be enough to let him leave the Giallorossi and the Stadio Olimpico. 32 appearances, all comps, and has recently scored in 3 consecutive Serie A matches. Manchester United are now interested in Marcus Tavernier from Bournemouth, according to Football Insider. One of several names on the short list for the summer. Cherries would be open to accepting suitable offers for him amid interest from multiple clubs in the Prem. Previous reports have indicated an offer worth £40 million would be enough to land Tavernier, who has directly contributed 9 goals in 25 league matches this year. Inter Milan tracking Spurs keeper Guillermo Vicario, according to Calcio Mercato. And I would think that Vicario might want to leave after what happened yesterday. Keeping tabs on him for several weeks, having identified him as a potential long-term replacement for Jan Sommer. Move to secure him expected to require an offer of 30 million euro, reportedly competition from Juve and AC Milan. Now, the heavy hitters, the quick hits. Bayern Munich are in talks with Harry Kane regarding a contract extension. That's from Bild. Barcelona have lined up Real Betis winger Abde Ezalzouli as an alternative if they don't sign Marcus Rashford to a permanent. That's from Marca. Arsenal have ended their interest in Sandro Tonali. Remember, Tonali feels a sense of appreciation and obligation to Newcastle, who stuck with him through his suspension. So keep that in mind when it comes to any mentions of Sandro Tonali. Juve and the Prem keen on Club Brugge defender Joel Ordóñez. Spurs have ended their pursuit of Rodrigo, expected to stay put after he sustained a torn ACL that'll keep him out of the World Cup this summer. Multiple clubs are interested in Brentford striker Igor Thiago. No team has made a concrete approach for him yet, according to Fabrizio Romano. RB Leipzig have agreed to a deal in the region of 20 million euro to sign Borussia Mönchengladbach midfielder Rocco Reitz. That's from Florian Plettenberg in Sky Germany. Millwall winger Femi Aziz is attracting interest from Everton, Palace, and Leeds. Gremio are preparing to offer Arthur Melo a new contract following impressive performances this season. That's from Diario AS. Eddie Howe wants Fabian Schär to sign an extension with just over 3 months remaining on his current contract. And Bournemouth manager Andoni Iraola is on the radar of Manchester United, Tottenham Hotspur, and Crystal Palace. If I was Andoni Iraola, I would not be interested in any of those 3 at all. I would not be interested in any of those 3 at all. None. Think about it. If I was Andoni Iraola and I was at Bournemouth right now is to the point to where they are competing for European football place. Right now, they're 9th. They've drawn 4 of their last 5. I get it. They're 9th place in the league. They're ahead of Fulham by 1 goal on goal difference, ahead of Sunderland by 2 goals on goal difference. They have figured out how to navigate the early stages of surviving in the Premier League. Now they're taking that next step of figuring out how to improve in the Premier League. And so that's what you're staring at with Bournemouth in and of itself. So let's take them case by case. Let's build up here. Happy to be here, FC, otherwise known as Crystal Palace. You've heard what Oliver Glasner has said all season long. He's not happy about the level of investment. They're selling players off, and he's not really getting a whole lot of input in the process. So Oliver Glasner has made it clear how displeased he is about the front office when it comes to what they're doing or what they're not doing when it comes to day-to-day operations at Crystal Palace. So if I'm hearing that openly in the public sphere, why, if I'm Andoni Iraola, do I think that if I go in, it'll change? I have no empirical evidence to think that it's going to. That's just me. So I don't know if I would, if Crystal Palace was offering me a gig, I would want in writing that there's going to be investment here, and here, or reinvestment if you sell players on, and it won't be in situations where you are trying to improve the club and the club is not in step with you as you're doing it. So issue number one. Then you go to club number two. That's a part of this. Spurs. First off, if Spurs get relegated, I don't know if I'm anywhere interested in wanting to sit there and go, yeah, I think I can take a team from the championship and I can bring them back to the Premier League. If Spurs are there, I am like, not the way that things currently are with Spurs. No chance. No chance. So, no for Spurs right now. Considering what we're seeing, yeah, you won Europa League. Yes, you're in Champions League. Yes, you're in the knockout stages. But there is something systemically wrong with the makeup of that roster and how they're perceiving themselves on a day-to-day basis. If Spurs comes knocking on my door, I'm like, no. I appreciate you asking, but no, I'm not interested. The third one is Manchester United. That would be the intriguing one of them all. But at the same time, Michael Carrick seems to be the answer already. Michael Carrick, I think, has blanked around and found out that if you do well, kind of like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I think, what were they, unbeaten in 18, 21 out of the blocks? Seems to be a cycle. But you come in as a new manager, and you're kind of like, yeah, okay, I'm navigating this pretty well. I honestly think that Manchester United will stick with Michael Carrick. I just do. I think they will. That's just my gut. So while there is discussion that you will have a new manager at Manchester United, I still think that it's going to end up being Michael Carrick by the time that we're done. So if I'm Andoni Iraola, I'm like, no thanks. Bournemouth has proven to me through my own assistance that we can recruit players, we can be successful, we can sell them on. 1, 2, 3. And now it's just, getting to that next level, I guess, of being consistently in European competitions and not just vying for European spots. So that's the next stage in this. If I'm Andoni Iraola, I would want to be in that situation more than I would want to be in another situation where I'm wondering whether or not the team is going to, for me, I can have a say in the investment, or if there's anything that can be done to change the situation around. Am I going to be a part of the creative process? If not, why would I want to take the gig? Some of these players may not fit what I want to do stylistically. At the same time, I want to be able to help grow this club. Crystal Palace, I don't know if you're going to do that. Like I said, just look at what Oliver Glasner's been saying in public. Spurs, you can look at Spurs and go, I don't know if I want any part of that. Manchester United, they're still trying to figure things out financially. It's a great run by Michael Carrick. We'll try and see. But I legitimately think that that's Michael Carrick's job to lose. So that's with Andoni Iraola. If I'm Bournemouth, I'm happy at Bournemouth. Bournemouth will reward me, continue to do so if we continue to improve. So I think you're fine in that regard. So that would be it for me. I would be sitting there and I'm going, I think I'm happy where I am. And I think that he would be rewarded as such. A couple of quick other little notes before we get out of here. Sheffield Wednesday. Apparently there was an apologetic post-match meeting over a call that That was an offside decision that cost them their first win in a long time. It was a draw with Watford yesterday, but apparently there was a call that went against them, and that could have given them their first win in a very long time. Still at the bottom of the table, but it has been put out in public reporting that Sheffield Wednesday could be set for a huge League One points deduction for the rule breach that has happened, because they could start next season in League One with a minus 15-point deduction. And this is according to our friends at Talk Sport, because prospective buyers don't want to pay the outgoing owner, Dafon Chansiri, £15 million. Chansiri has to receive £15 million from prospective buyers if Sheffield Wednesday is going to not go into next year with a points deduction. So they might be facing the drop in League One down to League Two from the beginning of next year. So the Owls would be in breach of EFL rules, which state the club has to pay 25% to existing creditors. And I anticipate that the idea of paying an existing creditor for a debt that is not theirs and was created by someone that they don't really hold in any regard as an owner, they'd be like, no, I don't want to pay his mess. EFL rules state all football creditors must be paid in full, with other creditors needing to be paid a quarter of what they're owed. During his 11 years, Chansiri loaned the club around £60 million, meaning the club's new owners would be required to pay him 15 or face another points deduction. The Storch Group is among one of the contenders to acquire the club and understood to be willing to take a 15-point penalty in order to secure the club. David Storch, American financier, we'll try and track him down, says that we remain incredibly passionate about the opportunity at Sheffield Wednesday and are seeing the club return to its former glory. We wish the preferred bidder well through the process, but are ready to step in should the opportunity present itself again. We know all are disappointed by relegation, wish the team well as they finish the current season. Mike Ashley is still on the table. He is believed to be the lowest bidder, shocking, by some distance, but he also wants to avoid the 15-point penalty. Remember last week, the group that was paired up with professional poker player James Board pulled out of the running because, as much as they were the preferred option, Board, they were wondering if he was going to be able to pass standards and practices as an owner. Sizable binding bid can no longer be justified, and they invested £4 million into the deal, into the club. So right now, with Chansiri out, then they were deducted 18 points this year, relegated in February, earliest relegation ever in the history of the EFL. Lost at Sheffield United, and that was what kind of secured that relegation. So, you know, it will be interesting to see what's going on, but I do not anticipate under any circumstance that anyone is going to want to pay Dafon Chansiri a dime for Sheffield Wednesday. We will effort to catch up with our friends at Forest City, Cleveland, and find out what it's like for them to be birthing something new in MLS Next Pro in 2027. As always, thanks to Dylan Butler. Thanks to our friend Matt Brown at Extra Points. That was really cool to be able to catch up with him and find out about college soccer. Do not be surprised if that conversation pops up on the Best of SDH AM that can be listened to at 92.9 The Game on the Odyssey app. And that's up for weekends that you can listen to and download it separately. And all of these pieces, the interview with Dylan and the catching up with Matt Brown, those will be up individually later in the day here on the SDH network as we get you ready for anything and everything going on here in the sport of soccer. Once again, remember tomorrow, it is Jessica Charman. She is going to be joining us batting leadoff because she's got a home game. It's going to be her and Lori Lindsay looking at Atlanta United in Philadelphia. We'll get Jess's thoughts on where she has been so far this year. It's been a couple of trips to the Bronx to find out what's going on at Yankee Stadium. But she's got a home game this week. We'll catch up with Jess out of the blocks, batting lead. And we also have the Power Hour with Nino and Nico. That is coming up at 10 and 10:30 tomorrow. We are also efforting a couple of other guests for Thursday and for Friday and for next week. Friday right now is Dave Leno for Opposition Research at 9:05 or at 9:05, just so we can catch our breath. Then hopefully our friends from Beyond Goals Mentoring at 9:30, and Jesus Perez Navarro joining us from Apple TV at 10, and then possibly guests joining us at 10:30 as we go here on the network. So that is another go round to the best of SDH AM. Thanks for hanging out with us, however you have done so. Tonight for high school, it is in flux. Jason has no voice. So keep an eye out and on all of our social media as to whether or not we can make it to the Baylor School in Chattanooga for Dalton and Baylor tonight. It's a 6 o'clock kick. Not all that optimistic about it, but keep an eye on our socials. And if we can come up with a solution, we'll let you know. Tomorrow, so on Friday, it is set Calhoun and Gilmer. Hopefully Jason's voice will have recovered by then. But so Friday, Calhoun and Gilmer. Today is in jeopardy right now with Baylor, the Baylor School, and with Dalton because of Jason. If you heard him last night on Atlanta Soccer Tonight, he was kind of hurting. And so he's feeling better, but the voice is shot. So that's not good when you're talking for a living. So thanks to all of you guys. Thanks for hanging on, and thanks for being a part of it as you always are. I think Dylan has changed my mind when it comes to giving money to valets. Have to remember that one. So do it as you go in, not necessarily as you're going out. You're hoping that they treated it well while you were there instead of encouraging them to do it on the way in the door. So for everybody here at SDH AM, thanks to all of you folks for hanging out with us as you always do. Back at it again for Thursday Thoughts tomorrow on the network. And since it is the end of the show, it means we get to do this. Back at it again, a little less than 22. See you then.